and welcome to Ape Exotics. Lucy, my Pac-Man Frog, has been fostered by friends of mine, and they wanted to build her a bioactive terrarium. Today, step by step, they will show you how they did a bioactive terrarium for her.
Fostered Pac-Man Frog, and over here she's having her afternoon nap today, and as we can see we have a bioactive terrarium. So what do you need to achieve this bioactive terrarium? First of all, you need a cocoa fiber substrate, and you need a water dish, some planting, moss, and also a hideout to make Lucy comfortable. And over here we can see some leaf litter. So what do we mean by a bioactive terrarium? A bioactive terrarium is a terrarium that can sustain life on its own. It is self-sustainable and self-maintaining. And this is done by using certain types of organisms that maintain a healthy ecosystem in the terrarium. So you don't need to change the substrate, even though Lucy obviously will need to excrete, because these organisms play a very important role. So what are the organisms that you need to buy? Very simple, just a couple of springtails and isopods, or else an army of either or. These organisms are called detritivores, and they feed mainly on dead organic matter, like for example the leaf litter, bacteria and mold, and also feces. So what is the advantage of having a bioactive terrarium? Well, there are two main advantages. One of them is that Lucy is living in a 100% organic, self-maintained environment, which she will feel more comfortable since it replicates their natural habitat. The next reason is that you don't need to waste time and money to change the substrate, meaning that you don't need to waste time to go and buy again cocoa fiber, remove the decorations, remove the plants, put them back, put back the decorations, remove Lucy, put her back. All this will be avoided if you invest in a bioactive terrarium. And now I'm going to guide you step by step on how we set up this beautiful terrarium. So choose a terrarium which is fairly big, so that the decorations will fit nicely and even the frog will have ample space to move around. Next, what we did, in our case, this terrarium has a mesh netting over here, and since at the moment we have very high temperatures, we decided to close this part with a sheet of plastic to avoid loss of moisture from inside the terrarium to the outside environment. But however, not all terrariums have this mesh netting. So what I suggest is that you check from the hydrometer if the humidity is high or low. If it is too low, all you need to do is just place a small sheet of plastic over here, just to cover half the meshing over here. Don't worry about the frog, it will still have enough air coming from the top part. Next, we went to buy cocoa fiber. Amphibians like a very soft, moist substrate, and cocoa fiber is the best choice. All you need to do is place the cocoa fiber in a bucket filled with a couple of maybe 4 inches of water and leave it to soak the water. You can also check the instructions on the packet to see how much water you need to do to break the cocoa fiber. After some time, the cocoa fiber starts to absorb a lot of water, and it would be easier for you to break it in very small and fine pieces. As you can see me doing in this video, it is very important not to leave large lumps, because it can be very dangerous for the frog. In what sense? The frog can easily, by mistake, ingest a large lump, and it is not good for their digestive system. The substrate was then evenly distributed throughout the base of the vivarium, as you are seeing me doing in this video. It was made sure that the depth was not less than 4 inches. Some pothos cuttings were then planted in the substrate. Pothos plants are hardy plants that do not require frequent watering. So all you need to do is lightly water their roots once every week or 10 days. So as you can see, we had already took a cutting from a pothos plant and placed it in a jar full of water so that the roots start coming out. Then, when the substrate was evenly distributed, we dug a hole in it and we gently placed the roots and the cutting in the cocoa fiber. You also need to place sphagnum moss to keep the moisture in the terrarium, as frogs like a humid environment. It is also very important not to place the moss close to the frog, as it can accidentally eat it and it's not good for them. As you can see, we mixed the springtails into the soil to have an ecosystem up and running. We placed leaf litter on the substrate so that the terrarium resembles their natural habitat, and also for the springtails to have their meal. A low-rating UV lamp is placed, since in the wild they would have been exposed to this type of radiation given out from the sun. So what do I mean with a low-rating UV lamp? It means that when you go to buy it from a pet shop, you choose the one with a 2 to 5% UVB. It is not essential to have a UV lamp placed, however, it will still help the frog to avoid having metabolic bone disease. A small water dish was placed in the substrate. It is important that the dish is immersed in the substrate until it is the same level of the surface of the substrate. The reason being that the frog would find it very easily to hop from the cocoa fiber to the dish filled with water. Obviously, be careful how much water you put in it. We don't want the frog to drown. So just keep in mind to have a couple of centimeters of water, not even an inch. Another important thing to keep in mind is that whatever you buy, always rinse it in hot water to remove any unwanted bacteria. So in our case, before we placed the water dish, washed it with very hot water, very hot running water, to eliminate this problem. Frogs also like to have a hideout, and we achieved this by placing some large pebbles and a branch on the top. Once again, we rinsed the rocks with very hot water, but this time the branches, instead of rinsing them, we placed them in an oven to bake for 30 minutes. Be careful, never place small rocks close to the frog, otherwise it may ingest them by mistake. Before we placed Lucy in her new home, I gave her a little bath. I used a deep plate and filled it with a few centimeters of lukewarm water. Make sure that it is not very hot. Check it with the back of your finger. Next, I wet my hands with water and gently lifted Lucy and placed her in the plate. And something else, I would advise not to handle the frog a lot. And when handling it, make sure that your hands are wet. Pac-Man frogs like daytime temperatures between 76 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, or else 24 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius. The ideal nighttime temperature should not be lower than 73 degrees Fahrenheit, or else 22.8 degrees Celsius. If the temperature in winter falls below 19 degrees Celsius, a heat mat and a thermostat should be used to control the temperature. I would suggest that you find a heat mat that sticks at the back part of the terrarium. In this way, the substrate would not dry quickly. One other thing, always check the hygrometer, so that you would know exactly the temperature inside the terrarium. The humidity should be kept between 60% and 80%. So it is always important to check your frog. If the skin looks dry, you need to adjust the temperature and humidity to stop this. So, how do you care for your frog on a day-to-day basis? Obviously, we feed Lucy 3 times a week, with a diet varying from waxworms to crickets and dubia roaches. Before I feed Lucy, I make sure that she does not have any pieces of the substrate on her mouth. The reason being that if she swallows some of the substrate, it can cause an infection. And I also mist her every day, and I check frequently the hygrometer, especially in summer, okay? So that I know if the substrate is too moist or too dry. If it is too dry, I mist the substrate again. So basically, these are the main steps that you will need to take so that your frog is happy in his home.
Having a terrarium in the house is ever so pleasing to look at. It gives that sense of nature, which I am sure even young kids would appreciate. Also, it is very low maintenance. It is ideal for today's hectic life. Thanks for watching Cap Exotics. Hope you liked today's video. Please don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.